We came out today to say to our government and the Israeli government and all the governments that are supporting the bombing of Gaza and the oppression of the Palestinian people that we can't bear it, that it is unbearable. And we're here today in solidarity with the people, the ordinary people of Gaza and Palestine and the displaced Palestinians all around the world, and also the ordinary people of the European countries whose freedom of expression is being oppressed and intimidated by our governments and our media.
To support the Palestinians.
We think they should stop bombing children.
Hi, I'm from the Socialist Party. My name is Essay. We're here supporting the mass demonstrations that are taking place. This is the third week. And we're absolutely outraged what's taking place by the Israeli state bombing Gaza.
I cannot get my head round people being deprived of food, water, medical care, medical supplies, their medicines.
We stand with Palestine because we are human.
Why come out today? Because if you're human, like they're bombing kids, they're bombing women, the people are dying. Some of the videos I'm seeing from Gaza is disgusting. Like and our government is supporting it like unequivocally. No one wants this. It's just wrong. It's just wrong.
This has been going back a long time. I think Arab unification was much stronger back then because Arab countries were more stable. But just the power that the Gulf has over petrol, for example, you can use that to manipulate America to stop bombing Palestine and helping Israel. This is the way that bigger countries can do stuff. I understand these protests can help, but there's only so much that civilians can do. Bigger countries need to do something. I just don't know how to get their attention besides protests. So this is why you should come out.
It's really important that we come together just to show that solidarity to the Palestinian people, and that no matter where you're from, what your religious background is, to show that we do feel for them, we are thinking about them, and we do stand with Palestine. And this is what the UK is about.
Is that there's two sides of this story. And just to simply put it, this side, the Palestinian side, one side is arguing why people shouldn't be killed, and the other side is arguing why people should be killed. And if that doesn't explain to you what side you should be on, then I don't really know what to say to you.
So the reason I'm out here today is, well, for one, I've been part of the Palestine Solidarity movement for about 6 years since university, since I discovered what was going on. It's actually insane how little people know about it, and that's what was so great today, to see so many people who do know about it. So the reason I'm here today is because the treatment of the Palestinians in the Israeli state is just absolutely horrendous. It's inhumane and it's just morally wrong. So I'm out here to say solidarity with the Palestinians and their resistance in every wet sense of the word, and to demand that our government holds Israel accountable for the war crimes it has committed, and also admits its complicity within setting the situation of Palestine and Israel up in 1948.
It was given by the British, who colonized the land and promised the independence back to Palestinians.
He gave it to the Rothschilds. I forgot which Rothschilds, but it was in 1917. So I'm not too aware of the history, but you know, we don't want to err on the side of conspiracy. Every time Rothschilds are brought up, it's on the, on the same breath as conspiracy. But it is. I mean, it's no lie. The Balfour Declaration was given to the Jewish community in Britain in 1917, and the leader of that Jewish community at the time was one of the Rothschilds. I think it was William Rothschilds. But so I think, of course, I mean, you can't ignore the role they play in history. The Declaration, which promised a Jewish homeland for the next 40 upcoming years, from 1917 to 1947, was given to a Rothschilds.
I mean, Jewish people have spoken out about it as well. It doesn't represent Judaism. It doesn't represent any of the religions. It's purely Zionism is not Judaism. It's an extremist view, and it's an extremist state. It's a terrorist state. It's like ISIS. It's like the KKK. It's like all these things that use religion in their power to use it as an excuse to commit heinous acts, and it's not justified in any way.
And the misrepresentation of what's going on, it's as if history started on October 7. You know, this has been going on for years. October 7 is just a development in what's been going on for, basically since 1948. you know, and it's in violation of flagrant violation of international law. It's just not okay.
A lot of people have only realized the issue from the 7th of October. They'd only heard because the news only ever highlights when something happens to Israel, and they're so biased. And the problem is that a lot of people don't know what's been happening since from back to 2005, back to the Arab War in 1967, back to 1948, even back to before then in 1917 when the people of Israel were promised a part of the land.
There was a Balfour Declaration that was written to Lord Rothschild at the time.
Jewish people are everywhere, and they are recognized as a religion, and their story is recognized, and everything is true. After World War II, they were all in their countries, and then the UK decided we need to make a state for them to put them all somewhere where they're all together. But they all came from different countries in Europe.
I just want to touch.
So exactly. And claim Palestine. So all these people lived in their countries, and then World War II happened, and then they were displaced, and so the UK sent them to Palestine, and then that was Israel. But the idea of 4,000 years ago, and it was written on all our books, a lot of things are written in our books, but this fight started because this country right here and in this parliament, they made Israel. That is it.
Jewish people, let's give the benefit of the doubt. The Jewish people were there in the land first. Who are to say these Palestinians weren't from Jewish descendant that came into Christian, came to Muslim? They might have still been from that land. Their generation might have still been born in that land. That is where a lot of these people come from. This is the indigenous land. No one has a right to go back 4,000 years ago and say, oh, I claim this from that long ago.
In 1948, the State of Israel was set up, largely because there was a lot of Jewish refugees within Europe after World War II, and our own government, Winston Churchill and the Conservative Party at the time, were very anti-Semitic and didn't want the Jewish refugees in the UK. So they worked with an extremist sect of the Jewish religion, which is called Zionism, to set up the State of Israel. And essentially from that point they have been ethnically cleansing and almost committing a slow genocide of the Palestinian people by, creating a settler colonial state and forcing people out of their homes. So it's been going on for about 75 years.
It all stems from colonization. It all stems from the West wanting a power within the Arab world, really. That is what it is. It's a conflict of power, and if it really represented Judaism, as the scriptures say, as the people believe, we wouldn't see these Jewish people here. We wouldn't see Jewish people, one of the biggest amount of Jewish people arrested in New York City. We wouldn't see any of that if it really represented the religion. And it's just like terrorist groups do not represent Islam. It's just like the KKK does not represent Christianity. It's taken out of context and it's used for a power struggle, and that's what it is. That's all it is.
It's Zionism is the problem. Free Palestine. The problem is Zionism. It's not Judaism. It's Zionism. Zionism is not the same as Judaism. Right? So whenever people attack Israel, they say, oh, you're anti-Semitic and whatnot. No, there are so many Jews here today who are against Israel, right? And then what are they? You're going to call them anti-Semitic? They're Jews. No, the problem is Zionism. That is the fundamental problem with what's going on. That political Zionism, it needs to get rid of it. It needs to go. And that's why you have all these conflicts. It's not going to stop. I mean, they've been illegally building settlements in the West Bank against international law since the Oslo Accords. And even prior to that, it's just not... It's not a good situation, and it's good to see so many people here waking up.
This whole debate on it being, a Jewish holy land, it's a holy land in all the three monotheistic religions. And I think there's a lot of stuff that's inflated this. This issue has been inflated as if it's a religious issue, as if it's a Jewish versus Muslim, as if it's that. And that's completely wrong. I mean, we've seen today there's been Jewish people protesting, we've seen Christians, we've seen Muslims, we've seen atheists, we've seen everyone from every sort of background protest. And that's not the issue. And even if you look back, before Israel was a state, before this was an issue, in the land of Palestine, it had the three holiest sites. Those sites remained peaceful. There was no aggravation that has been happening in recent years. There was no attacks. The people lived in a communal setting where they all coexisted perfectly, right?
So Palestine was the birthplace of Christianity. I mean, Jesus was born in Bethlehem, right? Which is in the middle of Palestine. And but this is affecting all religions, like Palestinian, Christians and Muslims are getting slaughtered in Palestine. So it's not a religious issue. It's not against, terrorism, or they're not inhumane. This is just rhetoric, the same rhetoric they used in the Iraq war. It's not working. People know the tactics. It's getting boring, and people can see what's going on, and that's what the situation basically.
Right now in Gaza, we're seeing the worst bombing we've seen, the cut off from internet, from communication. It's horrible. And right now our leaders aren't doing anything. And what we are doing here and what we are trying to do here is to try and extend our voice so that they have to do something, because something has to be done. There has to be some sort of intervention. We can't just lie idly and let this happen. This has been happening for over 75 years and it's been the worst it's been, so yeah.
What's Judaism, they can't just say God promised us this land however many thousands of years ago in the Old Testament, so like we own it, this is our land, we have a claim to it. Like no, what type of it's a backwards thinking. It's a backwards thinking.
The people who are Palestinian are indigenous to the land, and I don't think that they have any right of excluding them. I mean, imagine we were to say the UK, in the Quran, the UK came under a holy land from Muslims, and Muslims were to take that out of context and say we want the UK back, and they started using brutality and apartheid and aggression and sneaky military tactics to take the land back. I mean, that would be called a terrorist state. No one would condone that. No one would accept that.
So it's religious in that aspect. It's political in the other aspect, because Israel is like an extension of the West in the Middle East. Strategically, Israel is a very good location. US sees it as an extension of its military. These are not my words. These are the words of Noam Chomsky, he's a political professor, right? And so strategically, it's in their interest to support it. But also, that's why it's unequivocal support for Israel. Israel also has massive influence in the UK and in the US as well. They lobby politicians to pass legislation which will benefit them in their favour. It's a whole cocktail of depravity which just needs to go. The Palestinians aren't fighting. Like for example, in Gaza, they're just getting slaughtered. You know, I think the vast majority of Gaza is like under 24 years old. They're not fighters. They're getting slaughtered. Really, like they say they're going after Hamas. But really, like out of I think 7,000 who've died as of a couple of days ago, I think over 50% of that is women and kids. For every 100 children and women who die, they're probably only getting about one Hamas fighter. You know, it's indiscriminate. I mean, the Israeli minister himself said the focus is on damage. It's not on like precision. So that just tells you all you need to know, really.
We're talking about humans here. We're talking about people who are being bombed, kids, children. You know, over half the population in Gaza is children, 53%. You know, and then they're getting bombed for the actions of a few, and it's just completely unacceptable on any level. If this was to happen in any European country, a lot of people would be standing and talking about it.
All children have the right to be free and to still alive.
We call an immediate end to the war that's taking place on Gaza, and we're also calling for mass mobilization. And the other thing that we're pointing out at the moment is that we have no trust in the capitalist politician. We don't trust the Tories, Rishi Sunak, but even Starmer at the moment, and the Labour Party is not saying what needs to be said in terms of calling for an end of the war, for a ceasefire, and to stop the collective punishment that's taking place on Gaza. Innocent people are being killed, and it needs to end now. An end to the weapons that are being supplied by the Tories and the British government to Israel, which is then being used to bomb innocent people. So that's why we're here today, and hopefully if you're watching, then you should join the protest and demonstration on your area as well.
I think the UK would be vested in maintaining the state of Israel purely because of their relationship with America and the Middle East. So America funds largely the Israeli army, and the purpose of that being is that it allows them to maintain some level of control of colonial interests and imperial interests within the Middle East. So people quite often say that the Israeli army is like the American army but based in the Middle East, and that is one of the reasons that the UK government is also invested in that, because to divest from Israel would affect a lot of people's businesses, and that is not something that the Tory party, specifically Rishi Sunak, are very interested in.
I came today because I am a doctor. I'm no longer working. I'm too old. I hope that all the effort of people around the world and here in London will have some influence on getting a ceasefire to start with, because that is absolutely essential to stop more innocent people dying, being killed, starving.
Israel bombed Gaza and bombed the hospital and Israel kills children. After all, she kills children, she kills women, she kills old people, and I can say that Israel is terrorist. Yeah. because she did enact a terrorist act. Killing children who are innocent is a terrorist act.
I'm Palestinian. I'm Palestinian myself. It is very close to home. Like, what's going on is not okay. Like, everyone can see it. Like, you know, there's like, what, 500,000 people here? Like, it's not okay, and everyone knows it. So many people sympathise with the cause, with what's going on. You know, people aren't barbaric. What's going on is inhumane. It's barbaric, and you know, people are good people. They see what's happening, and you know, you need the ceasefire. It's the human thing. Like, you know, it's just what it needs. It needs to be done.
Over the last several weeks with the UN Council, every time there's been a vote for a ceasefire, let's not forget that the UK voted, abstained. Obviously, the US voted against every single time up to now. Well, and you know, you look at the UK population. There's been a poll done now, and over 75% of British people want a ceasefire, and yet we're still abstaining from the vote in the UN. So let's not forget that.
I just know, like, for example, in America, you have the lobby AIPAC, and I think it's like 98% of senators on Congress. The Senate passed a bill the other day. It was like 97 votes in favor, 0 against. The bill was to support Israel unequivocally. With 0 opposition. That's unheard of, right? Why is everyone, they're so staunchly pro-Israel? There's not even 1 or 2 votes against. When does it come to a point where it undermines US democracy or British democracy, the integrity of our system? When does it get to that point? It's a serious question.
Because for a long time they haven't been representing us. A lot of the decisions haven't been in favour of the people, and this is what a democracy is meant to be. It's meant to be a representation of the people, a representation of how we can spread out equal rights and stuff. And it's no perfect system, but it's the system that we have at the moment, and if our voices are to be heard, then this is what has to happen. So yeah.
We have to be here, man. This is literally the only way we're going to make change. There's no other way we're going to make change, whether it's signing petitions, calling our low, and if we fail, we fail, but at the end of the day, we can say that we tried, you know what I mean? So just being here,
You can be on the right side of history.
just being on the right side, exactly as he said, being on the right side of history.
Depends how much pressure we, the public, put on them, I think is the way to put it. I think the fact that we have had the biggest demonstration today that the UK has ever seen in solidarity with Palestine is amazing and is a real signifier of something more. I think what we have to do next is mobilise the working class and the trade unions and get people coming out on strike or occupying their workplaces until, you know, our government decides to do what they should do.
The British public has chose to speak up about this, and you're here interviewing us. So it's platforms like yours that, you know, are also the most important.
Well, the mainstream media, Sky News, BBC, Piers Morgan, but they're not. Credit to Piers, he's brought on Palestinian speakers, but that's where his credit stopped. You know, the media is, I mean, like BBC, for example, they were saying Israelis get killed, Palestinians die. They don't die. This is just a they get killed, they get murdered. It's a dehumanization tactic.
So I think for a long time, they have been perceived in a way that has desensitized them. And I think now that people are speaking out and we have the power of the internet and there's more freedom of speech, even though they are still trying to suppress us, I think stuff like this, it's giving people the incentive to research and look into it and realize that this isn't just an issue that is affecting one group of people, it's affecting the world.
I think if you look at kind of the targeted advertising that has been happening ever since the 7th, so I get adverts on my YouTube now talking about how Hamas is terrorists and all that kind of stuff. And I think that just shows the level of influence that the Israeli state can have. The fact that they can hijack media across the world proves how powerful they are in sort of the world global context.
See, a lot of people try, you know, debate whether protests actually do anything, but I mean, the strength in numbers. I mean, I think it estimated 200,000 people here over the course of the past few weeks. It's been over, you know, well over hundreds of thousands in every single country.
Just for people to keep turning out on the streets and be talking to as many people as you can about this, and also about connecting the wider struggle. So it's not just about freedom in Palestine, it's about talking about colonialism and the legacy of colonialism.
History. So we have to be representing, we have to make sure our voices are heard. So being out here with everyone, shouting Palestine, shouting ceasefire, and getting across what we want for our country's politics. We're all citizens of this country and we all have a say, and coming to these protests is a way of enacting policy change.
It's a genocide, it's apartheid, it's a concentration camp. I don't even like using the word open air prison because prison implies that the Palestinians have done something wrong. So this is what it is, and I think this is the whole point of this is to educate people bring light to people and make sure people are on the same page.
Yeah, one solution, revolution.
Free Palestine.
No matter like where you're from, whatever your ethnicity is, what your religion is, I think just take a moment, take a step back, just on your own, and just think fundamentally, how can you be okay with a child dying every 15 minutes through carpet bombing by an army that is as advanced, arguably one of the most advanced army,
The most well-funded army, the most well-funded government
with the
since World
most
War II.
advanced technology in the whole world, can just carpet bomb without any precision whatsoever.
Exactly.
So I think, wherever you're from, just take a step back and think, is that okay?
Yeah.
Like, just on a fundamental humanitarian level.
There's two sides of this story, and just to simply put it, this side, the Palestinian side, one side is arguing why people shouldn't be killed, and the other side is arguing why people should be killed. And if that doesn't explain to you what side you should be on, then I don't really know what to say to you. And I think that sums it up pretty much. So, yeah.